Hello again. We have a new thing to look at, and these are kind of fun because it's a bunch of relatively simple reasoning that lets you slowly solve a puzzle. And the puzzle in this case is a family tree. We've You've seen a key for these where they probably explained what all the shapes mean, but I'll go over it quickly. Uh, Men are square, women are round. Those are the two shapes that they use. A line horizontal connecting to means a couple that had kids, and the kids are on the line that drops down from those. So this is grandma and grandpa, and they had a daughter, then a son, and then another son. These are supposed to be from oldest to youngest, so this would be the birth order: big sister, and then middle brother and younger brother. Then their daughter married this fellow, and they had four kids: son, two daughters, and another son. Middle son, not no kids yet, and youngest son married this lady, and they had two daughters, two sons, and then another daughter. Then, because we're interested in tracking traits, and often we're using this to track genetic diseases, they shade in the shapes for anyone who has a certain condition. And apparently, this graph is about polydactyly, which is a condition where you grow too many toes or too many fingers. And they tell us down here that this trait is dominant. So big P means you grow extra fingers, and many people are little p, meaning they do not. And working from that, we're supposed to go through this tree and figure out as much as we can about all these people's genotypes. So let's get a color that shows up well and a pen size that shows up well. So grandma had polydactyly, which means her genotype is big P blank. I don't know what to put in the second slot. I don't know if she's double big P or not. Grandpa, same thing. Actually, for all the people who have polydactyly, for now I'm just going to go through and put big P and leave a blank because we haven't determined everything yet. There, big P, there, big P. Now, the normal condition where you have 10 fingers and 10 toes only happens if you have two recessive alleles. So that means everybody here who's unaffected. I'm trying to write these really small. P is a lousy letter to use for this because the capitals and lowercase are easily confused. I will try to keep that from happening. So all these lovely 10-fingered people have lovely simple genotypes that are obvious because there's only one way you can have the normal condition, and that's to be recessive. So can we now figure out all these blanks? Let's switch the color a little bit. There are two ways you can work with these. There's start with the parents, work down, and there's start with the kids and work up. Here's an example of start with the parents and work down. This dad has two little p's. That's the only thing he can pass on to his kids. Therefore, his daughter here has to have gotten a little p from him. She is a carrier, so to speak, for the normal condition. And his son also must have gotten a little p from him. Can we do that anywhere else? I don't see any place else that we have a recessive parent where we can work down to the kids. The other thing you can do is work up from the kids to the parents, like here. We have a son here who has two little p's. Clearly, one of them came from dad, but when you have two alleles, one of them came from each of your parents, which means one of these came from his mom. This mom must have little p here. And we can do that in another interesting place. This son has two little p's. One of these came from each of his parents, which means, aha, grandma and grandpa were both heterozygous. In two cases, they passed on a big P and had children with polydactyly, but they had their youngest son got little p from grandma, little p from grandpa, and ended up with a normal complement of fingers. Now, bad news here, we're not going to be able to fill this in, and it's basically because this fellow has no children, so there's no way to work up. And if we try to work down, we go to their parents, and it's like, well, they could be big P. That's certainly possible. There's also a good chance that they're big P, little p. We know they have polydactyly, so they have at least one big P, but we don't know what to put in this last space. There's no way to be sure about that. So if they ask for the genotypes of all these, we can say we're totally sure about all of these except for individual 2, 3, meaning generation 2, individual 3. We just don't know what's in that spot. Now, assuming at that point that they hold a gun to your head and said, no, tell us, give us your best guess about individual 2, 3, we really need it. Here's one thing you can do. We can do a Punnett square for Grandma and Grandpa. Big P, little p, cross, big P, little p. That gives us a 2 by 2 square. Grandma on one side, Grandpa on the other side. Cross these, you get big P, big P. Cross these, big P, little p. Big P, little p. And, oops, sorry, ignore that. That one is little p, little p. Now, this is something we haven't done before, so hang on. These are all the kids that Grandma and Grandpa had. Every time they conceived a child, these are the dice that you were rolling, so to speak. There was a 1 in 4 chance of this, a 2 in 4 chance of this, and a 1 in 4 chance of this. But for this son, we know they ended up with polydactyly, which means this did not happen. That one is out of the question. And that means the probabilities for this son have to come out of the remaining 3 squares, which means we can say for that son there's a 1 in 3 chance right there that they are big P, and there's a 2 in 3 chance that they're heterozygous, big P, little p. That is absolutely the best that we can do with the information that we have. We can't be sure, but if we had to guess, we'd say you're probably heterozygous, because there's a chance you could have gotten a little p from either one of your parents and still ended up with polydactyly. We know you're not double recessive because of the extra fingers you've got, but other than that, the best we can do is give these probabilities. All right, so they ask us here to summarize a bunch of the genotypes, which is easily done. And the main value of this is to get you used to the notation system. When they say I1, this is a Roman numeral 1, and this means first generation, first individual, which means here's generation 1. The first individual was Grandma. She's big P, little p. Generation 1, individual 2 is Grandpa here, and he is also big P, little p. Generation 2, individual 1 means this one. That's the normal-fingered young man who married into the family. 2-2 is the polydactyl daughter, big P, little p. Individual 2-3 is the so far childless son, who is, this is the one that we can't finish, he's big P blank. And because I barely have space here, I'm going to say that he is probably big P, little p. We found here that's a higher probability than big P. But are we sure? No, we are not. Individual 2-4 is the youngest daughter. She is little p, because she has 10 fingers. Individual 2-5 is, I'm sorry, I said daughter here. This is the youngest son, and he has normal fingers. And this is his lady, who is little p. Generation 3, individual 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's their youngest son, who we found was heterozygous. And generation 3, individual 3 is the younger daughter who has normal fingers, which means she's double recessive. Whew. Not too bad.